Back on Morning Line, our guest is Tim Takacs, elder law attorney. If you want to jump in, you get some free legal advice this morning, 737-7587. A lot of what you do sometimes, do you work with the principals themselves or family members when you do wills?
The families, no, the principals themselves.
They come
so if I'm
in
doing
and
wills, that's really basic estate planning because, see, they're the ones that have to do the estate planning.
Okay, I just didn't know if they sometimes come in with loved ones.
Oh, they often do. They might bring, you know, the parents or the elder may bring in, they bring children or whatever, and they'll say they want to come in and sit down and talk about estate planning because it's very generational. You know, and sometimes, of course, you know, older people, or like anybody else, it's like, well, you want a friend to come with you, so it's your child, and so they bring somebody, you know, and we sit down and we talk about their estate planning, and to me that's good because it's not just about their wills, but it's also about their powers of attorney. Because, you know, if here's mom and dad, you know, the older, you know, they're sitting in front of me, you know, and the children on either side, it's like, okay, so we're talking about, you know, to our clients to say, okay, so who's going to be your power of attorney? Well, you know, I think, you know, both my children should be. It's like, well, you know, we don't want to do this by committee.
Right, so they have to choose one.
Yeah, we want them to. Now, I've seen it done before, you know, where they do it by committee, and a committee is not, I mean, you can do it by committee.
But they may not always agree, right? That's
well,
the problem.
it's not so much about agreement, but it's like you walk into a bank, you know, and you're the sister, you know, and you're going, well, I'm power of attorney for my mom. You know, it's like, well, where's your brother? He's on here also. Well, we need his signature. Well, he's in Alaska right now. Well, tell him to get his butt here because, you know, you can't do this.
So it would have to be both of them there.
And then, you know, and then of course, then I've seen things like, you know, the power of attorney says something like, well, I name John and Mary, or John and or Mary to be my power of attorney, or my attorney in fact. So is it like, well, is it and or? It says and slash or.
Explain this too, just for folks, and this is something my folks need to do if we're going to handle this. All right, so they need to, if they decide, okay, and they've talked about it with their son or daughter, I want to get a power of attorney. And they're just sitting at home thinking, how do I do this?
Right.
They would call you. They would call. They need to call a lawyer.
They call a lawyer.
And it's basically, I just need some paperwork done where I will name these individuals power of attorney. And do they send something to the individual that's power of attorney?
Oftentimes they will. I know in my office what we will do is you call my office, you know, and people say, well, I want to get my documents in place, I want to get my estate planning done, you know, and someone from my office will say, well, okay, you know, here's what we do, you know, we will, you know, inevitably, of course people want to know how much it costs, and so, you know, depending upon what the kind of case it is, you know, our person in the office will say, well, Tim charges, or our office, we charges X for married couples, you know, Y for an individual.
To just draw up the power of attorney?
You know, to do your estate planning.
Oh, estate planning in general, okay.
And then we send them a letter that confirms the appointment. We send them a short workbook that has names of who they are and children's names, and, you know, and something about their health and something about the resources they have, because we kind of want a picture, you know, of what their life situation is. So while they're there, we can counsel them about, you know, have those, you know, conversations about what looks like what's the best for them. You know, and we kind of help, you know, kind of sort of ferret out of what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish, and, you know, how they want to feel like they want to do that. All those sorts of things that are part of, you know, the process of estate planning. You know, and then they'll come in and we'll sit down and we'll say, okay, let's talk about your situation. Here's your workbook. Tell us about, okay, it says here that, you know, you've got arthritis, how does that limit you? Or you have congestive heart failure, or you have a history of cancer, all those sorts of things that, you know, may affect, you know, their longevity, you know, their ability to function, you know, actively and be able to take care of themselves. So, you know, that's what we're looking for there. And we'll talk about who the proper, we'll talk about the agents, meaning like the healthcare agent, the powers of attorney. Well, it says here you want your daughter to do it. Well, she doesn't live here. Well, I really don't want my brother or my son to do it because of whatever reason. And it's like, okay, so let's talk about that. You know, so if he has problems with his, you know, finances, your son does, you know, do we want to leave everything to him outright, or should a trust be appropriate for him? Those sorts of things, you know, when we start doing our estate planning. So we kind of want to see, how the family is.
How long does that typically take to kind of iron these things out if you want to set up a plan for yourself?
Usually, that first meeting might take 45 minutes to an hour. We'll talk about, what their situation is, and then we'll say, okay, this is what it looks like that we can do for you. We'll talk through that. Then they'll make then we'll say, fine, they've agreed to retain us. We'll set an appointment in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have documents at that time typically. We'll go over the documents with them. They'll sign the documents.
Okay. So you've seen a lot of this, obviously. You've done it. Is there a single biggest mistake sometimes people make when they do this that jumps out at you that you're like, well, hang on here? Is there something that comes about in estate planning that is a mistake that you see happens commonly?
The biggest mistake is people don't walk around, that's my job is that my job is to go, well, what if this happens?
They don't consider all the options?
Yeah.
Possibilities.
They don't think about, okay, like here, the basic one is, okay, you have people, you have the husband and wife walk into our office, and the husband is impaired, and the wife is going, well, we need to do estate planning, and it's like, all right, well, so I understand you're needing to do estate planning, but your husband has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, and he's not really participating too well in this conversation.
Right.
And here she is thinking about making a power of attorney. She dies first. She's going to leave everything to him. But see, she doesn't think she's going to die first because he's in poor health and she's in good health. And my job is say, well, Irene, what if you pass away before Elmer does?
She hasn't even thought of that, yeah.
Or she might say, she just thinks, well, it's not going to happen because that's not a world that she can live in.
Exactly. It's hard for her to consider. If she's gone, though.
Right. And that's the biggest mistake I think people make is not being realistic or honest, with themselves about various possibilities that could happen. And my job is not to throw up. My job is not to throw all this, like I'll sometimes say is, look, we don't have to worry about a meteor falling on your head.
Right.
Let's talk about things that normally or could happen, that is within the reasonable realm of, of a human experience. That, okay, we're not going to talk about, okay, you got 4 kids, what if all of them get killed in a nuclear disaster or something? But let's talk about some realistic stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's what
that's the
your
what if
specialty
stuff.
is.
Yeah, that's what my job is.
Coming up with the things that they haven't considered.
Knowing enough about, having done this for a long enough time and seeing all the stuff that can happen, is helping people think through that. Well, what if this happens? I don't want to be a jerk about it.
I know, that's a tricky thing to say, because you're thinking of things that are usually probably negative. That's one reason they're not thought of.
Right.
Right? I mean, like you said, what if you die first? I mean, she doesn't want to consider that as a possibility.
Right. And I've seen, and I've seen people walk into my office every 2 or 3 times a year. I've had people walk into my office and they've got a fresh set of documents from a lawyer that doesn't do what I do. And for instance, the wife goes, well, it's like, well, look, it's good that you got your estate planning done, but did you know that you disinherited your husband? Well, the lawyer said that we didn't want him to inherit anything from me, so. Because he couldn't manage it, so we'll let the kids manage it. Well, did they talk about having a trust for your husband? Yeah. Well, it's pretty clear the lawyer didn't know.
He didn't bring any of this stuff up. Right. That's why you go to someone who specializes in elder law.
Right. Now, and I always compliment people. I say, great, it's good that you thought about that, and but maybe but that's how that's why they wind up in my office, because they go, I don't know if this is really the right thing for us.
Right. And then they realize, let's find out what
I kind of gently explain to them is, well, maybe it should be done this way.
Are you busier than ever?
Not ever, but...
Well, I'm just wondering, with the aging baby, I'm just wondering how big...
we have people coming in, I'm fortunate in that, is that, as you know, I have another lawyer that's now a partner with me.
Right.
And, she's Barbara's a geriatric nurse practitioner before she joined the practice, and so she's been practicing for 5 years, and... so we have a real good team of people that, I know we've talked about, I've got the elder care coordinators,
right?
Licensed master social workers. Another one is the former district long-term care ombudsman.
Well, you're out in the community a lot. You do this show and have been doing this in MorningLine for a long time, which I think helps get the word out, which is important. Besides these types of programs, how else do the folks find out about you?
Usually, one of the things that we do is that we are very keen on education, as you know.
Okay, so you'll go into nursing homes?
No,
typically,
we may do in-services for those facilities, or they may invite us to speak.
Sure.
But we do a lot of education to providers. Like we do a program a couple times a year. We'll do a program where we offer free continuing education to social workers, discharge planners. They come, and usually 200 or so show up because we've been doing it for a long time, and they really like it.
Well, and Lynn makes brownies.
Yeah, she does, and that's a big plate of brownies there for 200 people. So we do those sorts of things.
And then that's how they get to know, and so they're the ones dealing with the families firsthand.
Right. So our job, because they're going to be the ones they're the ones on the front lines.
Right. Exactly.
And so we want them to know about what we do, and how we do it, and how we help their clients. And because of the type of practice that we have with the social workers and the nurses in the past and everything else is that we are sometimes I think of we're more multidisciplinary, than just a law firm that has lawyers and that's it.
Sure.
Where
you cover every aspect of it.
Right.
And
so
I've met your staff.
Sure,
they're awesome.
And they are. Yes, they are awesome.
You cover every base.
We do, and so when families come to us, whether they're in crisis or not in crisis, they know that, we know about how healthcare works. We know about how long-term care works. Our focus is on how do we make sure that your loved one gets the care that they need. What resources are out there that it could be available to them. Those are the sorts of things that we do, rather than just, well, here's your documents and turn you loose and good luck.
All right, let's take a break on that note. When we come back, our final segment with Tim Takacs. If you want to join in the conversation, 737-7587. I think a bunch of people still in bed right now.
They must be.
They stayed up.
Yes.
All right, folks, we'll be back right after this. Stay with us.